नकुल मेहता और उनकी वाइफ जानकी पारेख एक साथ नजर आए जब वो पहुंचे P&G शिक्षा न्यू एंथम के लॉन्च पर, जहां वो बने खास मेहमान। ऐसे में सास बहू और बेटियां भी बन गया उनका साथी, जो आपके लिए लेकर आया है इस लॉन्च के सभी खास नजारे। तो आइए देखते हैं कि इस इनिशिएटिव के लिए नकुल और जानकी का क्या कुछ कहना है।
शर्मा साहब के बेटे को देखा है? I've grown up across the country, and if anyone's here from small town India, they will totally relate to this.
Right? It's not really a word or a phrase, but it was always why, Shalmali. It's why. What is it? I was always the extracurricular driven girl, and my academics, I would be like, okay, just about passing. And all my teachers felt like if only I put in the effort, I would do better. Yeah. So they would always be like, but why? Why? And I would be like, I don't know. And I know in school that if I had had a little more time with grasping certain concepts, just because I was not at the same pace as everybody else in my class. I might be really good at something else, but I'm not at the same pace in a certain subject. Yeah. I wasn't able to answer the why that my teachers had for me. I think इसके पहले कि हम और कुछ करें, हम ये गाना जो इतना सुंदर बनाया है, हम सब साथ में गा सकते हैं? Yes. अभी तो पहली बात तो जोर से हाँ बोलना पड़ेगा, गा सकते हैं? हाँ. I don't mind हाँ और yes. तो लिरिक्स बड़े एक ही लाइन आपको गानी है. अब सब जाएंगे स्कूल. अब सब जाएंगे स्कूल. Wow. सुर भी है यहाँ पे. Very nice. Can we do it one more time? I'm going to do it and then you're going to sing just this line again, okay? 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 हाँ चलेगा, okay चलेगा. अब सब जाएंगे स्कूल.
अब सब जाएंगे स्कूल.
मिले लर्निंग के नए टूल. अब
जाएंगे स्कूल.
अब सब जाएंगे स्कूल.
सब जाएंगे स्कूल.
मिले लर्निंग के नए टूल. सब
जाएंगे स्कूल.
सब स्कूल जा चुके हैं वैसे यहाँ पे. But I also want to say that learning, I don't think happens only when you're in school. It can happen anytime in life. When I was 29, I decided career छोड़ देते थोड़ी देर के लिए, जाके कुछ पढ़ लेते हैं. So I've gone and studied at summer school music, which I never got to study in a classroom. So अब सब जाएंगे school is not only for school children, I feel. This anthem, it can extend to anybody who is ready to learn and grow as a person.
Fast, huh? No thinking.
Okay.
No thinking. It has to be spontaneous. It has to be fun. It has to be honest. Okay. Who is most likely to get irritable when teaching your child and it takes a few attempts to explain a concept? I love the honesty or the chemistry. I don't know, honesty or chemistry. Okay. Who is most likely to relate and remember your childhood and the areas that troubled you?
Lot of childhood trauma there.
Yeah.
I've healed mine.
I'm waiting. Has to be me. The trauma has been.
See, everybody has trauma.
Yeah.
अरे मैंने heal किया है यार.
Some people
I've done
just
some inner work.
Some people just don't accept it that it's trauma.
Listen, I don't know why like trauma has ma in it. I don't get it. I think mostly the dads have to be blamed, right? We should rename trauma. What do you think, Mansi?
I think that it doesn't need to be renamed because the dads have given the ma the trauma.
The ma.
Nice one.
Okay, I mean, I'm not sure my partner can say that though.
Who is more likely to think that learning gaps today can impact a child's confidence for life?
Both of us.
Both
of us.
Yeah, all of us. Who's more likely to worry about whether their child is truly understanding concepts or just memorizing?
Neither, I think.
Neither actually.
Neither.
Yeah. Has the child eaten food? That's the answer.
Yeah.
But concepts, no. Where as long as they're emotionally taken care of and they feel happy and they feel confident of themselves, we both will be okay, I think.
I just feel that like learning is beyond just memorizing things. Like you said, it's more about understanding. So if you truly understand something, it's good. You don't need to like go crazy about memory. We haven't reached that phase with our kids yet, but I think
Yeah, we're pretty. Yeah.
Slowly and
I
steadily.
think शिक्षा का मतलब ही ये होता है ना. हाँ, I think unfortunately some of us, most of us, like growing up, have not had that kind of education or that kind of rigor or discipline to it. जहाँ सब कुछ आपको rote learning करनी थी. But I think it's changing now, and if as long as we can pass that on to our children कि पढ़ाई समझ, दुनिया समझो, भूगोल जो है उसमें आप दुनिया को समझ रहे हैं, अर्थमेटिक है उसमें आप दुनिया को समझ रहे हैं, it'll be a different way at looking at things. So memorizing, I don't think either one of us would really care about.
Right. And I think
I'm a huge believer in sports, and art is very important for kids, right? So I make sure, because the younger one is very young, I take Sufi, my 5-year-old, to every sport I play. And I want him to see me at my best and worst. I want him to see when I'm winning, and I want him to see when I'm losing. And hence I have to be at my best. I think sport teaches you losing with dignity and, wanting to congratulate the other person more than anything else. So, of course, whilst I think it's very important to be competitive, but also remember it's only on the field, right? And then you walk away and you had a good game. So I think for me that is key. Like that spirit is very important. अगर वो spirit नहीं है जिंदगी में आपके बच्चे के पास, तो मुझे लगता है then you can also have a happy-go-lucky kid, which is fine. But I also want to be able to sort of pass on that spirit of, yeah, I want to do best. Right? That's it. My best.
And I think that spirit comes when when you just don't tell the kids to do this, go play the sport, go play football, they need to see that their parents do it. In our case, it's him, and he makes sure that he's there for every sport that he goes for, and he takes Sufi along, and he also goes for every outdoor activity that Sufi, goes for, whether it's a park or whether it's a sport, and he sees that his dad does it, so I have to be, and he absolutely loves his father, so, he wants to be like him. So yeah, kids really, take on everything that, you need to model that.
In fact, we don't even congratulate if he wins or if he does well. We're like, did you have fun? Was that effort? Did you enjoy putting in the effort? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I think I enjoyed myself. And we don't tell him, you did well. I think it's very important for them to be able to build this self-esteem. And going back to the music video, I think, right, again, if you looked at the boy, I think there was so much self-doubt, there was so much, and I have gone through that, I know that, right? I feel it is all we can do as parents, as first allies, is to be able to fill our children with hope and confidence, and that we exist and we will love you no matter what you've done in life, right? So whilst it's beautiful that the education system takes care of one bit, P&G Shiksha comes in and takes care of a massive, identifying where the child needs help. But I think as parents, it's very important to give them just that confidence and love that you'll be loved no matter what. I can talk from my own lens first before becoming a parent. I'm a Fauji kid. I've changed 10 schools, lived across the country, studied in government schools also, Kendra Vidyalaya. And I know when I moved from a Kendra Vidyalaya to a school in Bombay, it was very hard for me in every which way, right? It's a very premium school in northern suburb of Bombay, different socioeconomic strata, a different board, different way of teaching. And until I was in my last school, this was in Andaman Nicobar, another, I thought I did reasonably well. I was very interested in sports. I used to always do well in my class. And I came here and realized that, okay, this is a larger pond. It's a sea you've come to. And everything felt different. And I did not know how to articulate it. And at that point, I didn't understand. It wasn't my job to understand it. I was 13 years old. But I think those 3 years in Bombay were slightly hard for me. And it's only when I kind of reached junior colleges when I was able to finally find myself, find friendships, find why education is so important. So I felt that learning gap, right? And I don't think our parents at that point had the access to also I think we come from some amount of privilege where we have access to information, the internet, some amount of backing now that you've built a base for yourself where you can think about the emotional needs of your child. I think to give credit to our parents, they probably were taking, the child is well fed, is secure, that's good, right? So I don't think my parents at that point could really understand, they cared. But I think learning from that today, we are very, very cognizant that what I can really give to my child is just a safety net. Not to say that we're trying to be perfect parents. We make mistakes. I mean, I make mistakes more often than not. Yesterday there was something which happened with me and my child, and at that moment I chose to then 10 minutes later go and repair it and like really hugged him and apologized to him. I don't think that would have happened with me and my father, but you know, you've learned over the time, and what I can only give him is, like, if you notice, all of us, and I might be generalizing, but whenever there's emotional distress, would run to our mothers, right? Fathers for everything else, but mothers for emotional distress. And we want to change it together, you know. We should, like, both our kids should feel that my father can be as capable of handling my weak moments and tough moments as my mother. And I feel if we can do that as parents at home, it makes, I feel, you know, eventually what we are talking about at Shiksha is bridging the learning gap, right? Lessening the learning gap. वो learning gap, अगर आप घर पे ही आप support कर सकते हो या समझ सकते हो अपने बच्चे को, I think it'll be much easier at school. If the child doesn't feel dumb about asking a question, doesn't feel dumb about being judged, I feel that confidence if I can give. And whilst I understand like the learning gap is mainly academic, I feel there are learning gaps in many spaces. Like there can be a vocabulary gap, there can be a confidence gap, there can be a curiosity gap, and it's up to me as parents, how can I really support my child to feel capable, that when he goes to school he wants to go out and like really embrace. So it's, whilst that is structured learning, he goes with a lot of self-belief and emotional steadiness to be able to embrace that structured learning.
How are things mixed, and then how can we separate them, right? I don't think I'm able to understand this, and hence I don't like science. I don't want to study, you know, this subject. I don't like this. I don't want to do that homework. And like Nakuul just mentioned also, and it's also sometimes identifying that gap, right? Identifying it, and then how can you make this fun, engaging for the child as well. And the activity that I did, which was very simple activity, right? We took some water, salt, mixed it up, and just put it on the gas stove and said, okay, just let the water evaporate. And right? It was the salt comes back, right? And then water on a steel plate, you can collecting water back. And that moment, right, was as close to as the emotion that you saw on the song, right? From not going to school to everybody goes to school. It was exactly that aha moment, and since then he's come back and said, okay, can we, you know, separate it out using another method? So I'm also learning some of those methods myself as I do that. But that to me just tells us that, you know, learning gap is not just, you know, that we just hear, it's actually universal. We just saw the stats, right? 50% of adults have seen or felt, being left behind. And more than 50% of grade 5 students today in our country are not able to read grade 2 text. This is from ASAER report from 2024. And it just hits you hard once you internalize this. And as P&G Shiksha, what we are trying to do is to lend a hand to both parents, teachers, and the entire ecosystem to erase this learning gap. And it's a long journey, right? I mean, still today, there are 50% of these students who need help. And hence, we look, to erase this and also look forward to support from all the allies on the journey.
Today, in today's day and age, with technology, with information, with social media, with everything you have everything available at the click of a button. There are comparisons, there is, your milestones that you have to hit. Like you said, best school, best, So I actually feel that the definition of parenting, being a good parent today has changed a bit. It's about having everything right and doing everything right, And whilst that is good, in some way, I feel that when we keep chasing getting everything right all the time, chasing that perfection all the time, what we really forget is to just be present and see the child for who he is, Is he actually enjoying this, And we have gone through that, There was a phase when we are like, ye class mein bhi bhejna hai, chalo football bhi karna hai, Lego bhi karna hai, gymnastics, dance. Very slow, soon I realized that I am actually making him do things that I want him to be on track. These kids are also doing, so we have to. All his school friends are going. But like much later we realized that wait, he's not enjoying few things. There are some things he's great at, some things he's not. Why are we pressurizing him to be a certain way? So I feel that just like, and I also feel that like we go through, like as kids, we have gone through it, like learning gaps have been there. Firstly, normalizing the fact that learning gaps exist with everyone. It's not a disease. All of us go through learning gaps. It's okay to have learning gaps. Like for me, if I have to give my example, I was terrible at maths in school. I just couldn't understand numbers. And I somehow managed to kind of pull through till the 10th standard. I was the captain of my house and, and then I had to give my math exam. And I scored 69 marks in my paper and my best friend got 96. And I was just shattered, not just with the marks, just feeling that I am not good enough, And trust me, that feeling of not being good enough still stays with me. Today also, if you have to, I have traveled the world with my band, performing everywhere, making money, buying a house, doing all these things with money. But when it comes to calculation or making an invoice where I have to, I'll always call Nakuul, what's the percentage of this if I have to, and it's really stupid. But the thing is that I have a fear of numbers and it stayed with me. Even today when we have to talk about investments, I will always kind of, just run away from.
I hear that so often.
Yeah, I feel like, and when the same thing happens to your kids, we feel that this is just a phase. Like you said, that 74% of parents feel that early development, early learning difficulties is actually just a phase and they'll get over it. But aisa hota nahi hai, So I love the fact that P&G Shiksha is really focusing on finding those gaps. There are lots of families that are underserved, which don't have the access to these learning tools. And to really identify those gaps early on, identifying early on and then kind of working with kids on it, through different apps, through your role-based learning, your role play, through kind of group activities. I think it's beautiful. And I think it's only when you intervene, is when the kids kind of they get the confidence that, I can do this. But for that, it's very important to kind of connect with them not through learning, not through academics, but emotionally. Really creating that safe space at home, through P&G Shiksha. Are they really lagging behind? They're struggling to read a book. Okay, let's fill that gap.
They come with half the curriculum, and by which I mean, no child. Children don't come as empty vessels. Yeah. They come with their own lived experiences, could be smaller, with their parents' access to education or not, their cultural influences, their socio-economic strata. So a lot of how you react with the world and engage with the world has already been somewhere formed subconsciously. So in school, when you find structured learning, there's only that much a teacher can also do. And if you really travel to the interiors of the country, like I was sharing with friends at P&G just before this, we had the good fortune of traveling to Himachal and we went to some villages in Kangra Valley. Went to a village called Dhaded. Went to Angarwadi school there. Like one teacher teaches everyone, like 20 kids from 1st to 5th standard, right? So he, in that limited time, he's trying to teach everybody, and they all, like, we want to take a child and like sit there and understand how the rest of the country also studies, right? And you understood that all those kids came with their own sort of life, little experiences, biases of the families, and they all learned from the same teacher but learned differently. And hence it is so important for besides parents and besides teacher, for there to be this third intersection which P&G Shiksha so beautifully is filling in. I hope so, more corporates sort of come and kind of take this ahead. It can't be just P&G Shiksha you know, because we've reached 1 crore, right? It's a huge number to reach out there, and you'd agree with me, Rajat. Like when I saw like what they come and do is identify कि यार क्या समझ नहीं आ रहा है या क्या feel हो रहा है, वो चीज़ हम बात नहीं करते. So I feel this intersectionality is very important, and like which something we keep reminding to ourselves that what we can really take care of is we can't take care of the other two things, but we come from some amount of privilege. Everybody sitting in this room, if I was safe to assume that, is at least give our children, you don't need to give them the best of everything. Honestly, they don't need the toys in the world and things to distract their mind. All you could give them is some amount of time, and it differs for different people depending on your own situation in life, right? But if you do have time, like maybe move away from that cell phone. And I say this as a reminder to myself. Sometimes, you know, you find yourself doing that with your child around, and just give them time, because if you fill that vessel with love and confidence, I think they'll go into these structures just willing to fail, willing to make, you know, maybe ask a question which may not sound intelligent. And वही तो देना है हमें, you know, क्योंकि बाकी काम तो स्कूल और P&G शिक्षा कर ही रहे हैं. So as parents, the least I could do is, you know, just fill them with this kind of sort of the sensitization you're doing for the rest of the family. The parents may not have had education, right, or access to education. The pride they will feel with their child, you know, beginning to sparkle up with learning all these things. That is one part of it. And the second part is, this is the on-ground activation. There is the other part of awareness. The fact that today, all of us in the room have heard of this term called learning gap. We're going to go back, privilege or not, we're going to go back and use that and talk to our friends. So 1 crore बहुत कम number बोल रहे हैं. I think you can really re-look at that number again.
Yeah. Also, I feel like it's not just like you're not just providing education. These 1 crore lives would have not got the support had it not been for P&G Shiksha. So, pat on your back.
First of all, the event that we celebrated today was on P&G Shiksha, a journey that we have continued and started over the 2 decades back. And today we are celebrating a milestone which is impacting 1 crore lives of children all around India, eradicating learning gap. Learning gap is a problem or challenge that this country is facing today. To elaborate on this, right, 50% of grade 5 students today are not able to read grade 2 text. So when you understand this and imbibe this, you realize how big this gap is. What P&G Shiksha is trying to do is to identify this gap and do on-ground outreach programs which are preventing and eliminating this with partners on ground like EI, Pratham and Roundtable India. So
yes, very important question. I feel Jankee and I have now we've been associated with P&G for a while. We've had some very value-creating relationships, especially at Pampers. We're consumers, lovers, buyers, also storytellers there. But you know, when we really got to understand कि P&G शिक्षा जो उनका इनिशिएटिव है, वो एक्चुअली गांव-गांव में जाकर इस देश के, आई थिंक देश के इंटीरियर्स में जो इम्पैक्ट फैला रहा है, एक तो होता है आपका दैट यू बिल्ड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर स्कूल्स अक्रॉस द कंट्री सो दैट पीपल गेट अ चांस, स्टूडेंट्स गेट अ चांस टू एजुकेशन. और दूसरा होता है, आई थिंक वी हैव गॉन अ स्टेप अहेड वेयर एक्सेस मिला है, बट एक्सेस के बाद बच्चे पढ़ पा रहे हैं या नहीं पढ़ पा रहे. एंड स्टेटिस्टिक के हिसाब से आप बहुत सारे 5th स्टैंडर्ड या 6th स्टैंडर्ड के बच्चे 2nd स्टैंडर्ड की किताबें भी नहीं पढ़ पा रहे. यू नो, काफ़ी देयर हैज़ बीन अ लॉट ऑफ रिसर्च व्हिच P&G इज़ डन. आई थिंक ये जो लर्निंग गैप जिसे कहते हैं, है ना, जो एक होता है जो आपकी उम्र के हिसाब से आपको जितना समझ आना चाहिए वर्सेस जितना आता है. तो अगर आप 5वीं कक्षा में हैं और आपको दूसरी कक्षा की जो किताबें वो समझ नहीं आ रही है, तो एट सम पॉइंट या तो आप सवाल पूछना बंद कर देंगे, या स्कूल जाने में दिल नहीं लगेगा, या पढ़ाई नहीं करना चाहेंगे. आई थिंक P&G शिक्षा ने इस समस्या को बड़ी अच्छी ढंग से समझा है. एंड आई थिंक अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स देव डन, राइट. देयर इज वॉलंटियर एक्टिविटी, देयर इज एक्टिवेशन, घर पे ऐप्स दिए हैं ताकि बच्चा अपने आप समझ पाए कि उसको ये नहीं आ रहा है, उसको आसान कैसे बनाए. यू नो, आज हम AI की इतनी बात करते हैं, अगर AI का असल हालांकि बहुत लोग डरते हैं उसे, बट अगर एजुकेशन में उसे सही ढंग से उसे यूज़ किया जाए, जो P&G शिक्षा करी है, रजत उसके बारे में और बता सकते हैं, आई थिंक वो आपको एम्पावर कर सकती है, वो आपको पढ़ने में और हौसला बढ़ा सकती है. तो उनका एक जो ऐप है उसका नाम क्या है, माइंड स्पार्क्स. जहाँ बच्चे अपने आप को वैल्यूएट कर सकते हैं, गेम्स की तरह पढ़ाई सीख सकते हैं. आई थिंक ये जो है ना कि ये समस्या को समझना कि ये शायद बड़े बच्चे हैं पर इन्हें ये समझ नहीं आया है, उसको अगर हम जल्द ही समझ पाते हैं, अवेयरनेस क्रिएट कर पाते हैं और उसके बाद उसे कम कर सकते हैं, वही इस संस्था की आई थिंक इनिशिएटिव है. एंड इट्स अ ब्यूटीफुल इनिशिएटिव क्योंकि इससे पिछले 21 सालों में 1 करोड़ लोगों, बच्चों की ज़िंदगी बदली है. एंड आई फील लाइक one child has just infinite potential. So when you speak a crore lives, you're talking about a crore families, right? तो इसीलिए आज हम एक साथ यहाँ पर एकजुट हुए हैं to be able to firstly really appreciate and congratulate you, Rajat, and your entire team for the wonderful work you've done with P&G Shiksha, and also to be able to take this initiative to all of you जो घर बैठे इसे देख रहे हैं. क्योंकि एक तो है जितना वो कर सकते हैं वो कर पा रहे हैं, पर अगर आप लोग भी इससे जुड़ जाएं and you again amplify this or go back at home and try to sort of be more present and understand your child. अगर learning gap है उसे हम as parents कैसे fill कर सकते हैं. I think वो जो awareness है वो आज के event से हम create करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. And it's a great honor for Jankee and I to be sort of be able to talk about this wonderful initiative. हम इसके बारे में बात कर सकते हैं, प्रचार कर रहे हैं, पर ये लोग जो गांव-गांव में जाकर इस देश में I think actual impact कर रहे हैं, it is really commendable and it gives me great joy कि ना सिर्फ मैं उस म्यूज़िक वीडियो में एक हिस्सा निभा पाया, but Jankee and I can also be before even Rajat says it, like self-proclaimed ambassadors to really go and take this message and share it with many friends and people across through our parenting community, which we heavily sort of are very committed to building at the Indian Parent Board. So this feels so beautiful and organic, and thank you Rajat for this beautiful event today.
Thank you very much.
Like I said at the event also, there is a lot of pressure. Pressure is continuous, pressure is constant, but I feel as parents and it is so important that हम ये pressure, we don't kind of fall prey to getting everything right and being perfect, but really being present for your child at home. P&G Shiksha is doing their bit, but it's very important that it's work for the children is done hand in hand with teachers, with parents, with P&G Shiksha. So really at home, moving away from perfection. How do we move away from getting everything right to really to the emotional side, focusing more on the emotional side of learning, focusing more on the empathy, provide that safe space to your child. The child should feel safe enough to come home, make mistakes and be okay with making mistakes at home. Imagine वो घर पे आता है और आप continuously उसको टोकते रहते हो, ये क्यों किया, वो क्यों किया, ये गिराया, ये नहीं, why you not being able to learn this or that. Instead let them do what they want, let them finish what they do, and then maybe really ask him that, can we try this again together? I'm here, I'm happy to help. So really changing communication and there has to be a shift in energy, I think, at home, right? And that begins with parents. And even as co-founders of the Indian Parent Board, we really, why this this beautiful initiative really resonates with us because we feel the same, we talk about the same things in parenting, that how can we raise ourselves better, to be able to raise our child better, how can we let go of correction and really focus on what the child really wants. And that happens only when you listen to the child, when you observe his cues. It's not going to happen if you're continuously going to correct him and not observe his behavior.